he just lied to you and he said, you know what, I got counseling, and so you had just moved back.
Okay. So I had just moved back into the house and he had lied to me because he had said that he'd gotten counseling to correct the problems with his anger, but he hadn't. And so about 3 months after I moved back in, he ended up hurting my back. He ruptured a disc in my lower back. So I ended up going to a doctor, initial doctor that said, I'm sorry, but this is such a big problem. I cannot fix it. You're not going to be able to walk again. And I was panicked about that. And a friend of mine at my work said, no, don't take that as real. Go to see a neurosurgeon. And so I took the testing and stuff that the other doctor had done to this neurosurgeon. And he had my x-rays up on a lighted screen on the wall. And he very cockily said, oh, I can fix this. And so I wanted to believe that. And
Yeah.
so, yes, schedule surgery, whatever you have to do. So they did. And in December of 1987, I went into the hospital the night before they were going to do the 7 a.m. surgery the next day. It was going to be a laminectomy, discectomy surgery. But they wanted to make sure that when the disc blew out, that a fragment of it didn't chip my spinal cord, because then it would have been a much bigger issue.
Yeah.
So they did the myelogram, which is injecting iodine dye, and they did it right in the back of my neck and they numbed the area. I wasn't under anesthesia or anything.
Mm.
And they told me, you have to hold absolutely still during this procedure as we tip this x-ray table that you're laying on, because if you move at all, you're going to have headaches for months afterwards. So they
Scary.
started tipping the table, and the x ray techs were right at the end of the table by my head. And one was looking at a monitor, and they began talking to each other. And the two doctors were talking to each other, leaning against a wall, kind of behind. And then there was a nurse over by the door at a table doing paperwork. So nobody was really watching the table. And the guy was tipping it the wrong way. He was lowering my head instead of raising it. And he wasn't noticing it. No one was noticing it. And I felt immediately after they started tipping the table really weird. And I thought, my God, I'm going to faint. This is so weird. And so I knew that I didn't want to interrupt them, but after about a minute and a half, I thought, look, I'm going to faint.
Mhm.
There's this no way this is supposed to be like this. So I couldn't actually talk by the minute and a half point. I couldn't reach my hand out. Nothing in my brain was making any sense for me to be able to move or
Mm.
talk. And my eyes started rolling into the back of my head, and I couldn't keep my eyes forward. And then I started hyperventilating. And that's when they realized that something was wrong, the two x-ray techs. So they stopped talking. And the one x-ray tech who was pushing his finger on the button leaned over my body on the x-ray table over my face, saw my eyes rolling backwards, saw me hyperventilating, leaned back and looked to see where his thumb was on the machine. And he made this look like, oh my God. And that was the last thing that I saw. I literally left my body in 1 second, and I'd never heard of a near-death experience. I'd never meditated. I was a mom. I had, little kids, and I didn't even know
This was not
what
even in your
was,
ballpark. This was like,
no
yeah.
way, no way. And so I literally shut my eyes in my body, and the next second, I opened my eyes, and it felt like the ceiling was against the back of my head. But of course, I didn't have a head up there, but it felt like I was looking straight down at the table and the entire room. And I didn't feel panicked up there. I felt like I was wrapped in an amazing blanket of love, acceptance, warmth. I just felt wonderful up there. And I looked down and I said, huh, if I'm up here and my body's down there and that man is calling code blue, I think I just died. And right when I said that, there was this feeling of a presence that I detected next to me on my left hand side. It felt as though someone was there. and that someone felt very very accepting, beautiful. And so I ended up saying and turning, like turning a little bit towards that. And while I was watching everything down below, I said, I really need to go back into my life. If I leave my children in this way at this time, they will be abused and I won't be there to protect them. Please, please, please let me go back into my life. And so I ended up saying that about 4 times during the whole situation. And after about 8 minutes went by, and they were doing CPR on me initially. Then an oxygen cart was brought in. And when they did that, the oxygen mask was placed on my mouth and they stopped blowing into my mouth. But then the 2 extra techs just switched off doing chest compressions about every 2 minutes. They would switch off. The doctors were yelling orders at everybody. The nurse at the table was calling on the phone and screaming into the phone that she needed a defib unit stat. And then this woman came in and she had an oxygen cart, but I mean, sorry, she had the oxygen cart. Okay. But then this man came in and he had this box that I didn't recognize what he was doing. He went around my feet at the end of the table and he put the box on a ledge. And while I was watching that, I was asking, to go back into my body. And he had these white things that he was peeling off and he was putting them on my chest. And I didn't know what he was doing. And I interrupted myself and said to the being, I understand everything else that's happening, but what is that he's doing? And when I asked that question, I was moved down in front of the box. So my consciousness was now directly in front of the box. And I watched as his hand went in front of my consciousness and he flicked a toggle switch on the side of the box. And this little white light lit up in this long green screen and it started going in a straight line across the box. Well, I had never seen a heart monitor before. I didn't know what it was. And I watched it go across the first time. I watched it go across the second time, and it was making this
Mhm.
beep sound. And the third time it started to go across, I went, oh, I think that's supposed to be going up and down for my heart. My heart's not beating. And the second that I thought that, I was back up on the ceiling next to the being again. And I again asked to go back into my life. So then the neurosurgeon was standing off to the side with the orthopedic surgeon, and they had been calling out all these orders and stuff. They hadn't been actually physically doing anything. And the neurosurgeon leaned over to the orthopedic surgeon and said, too much time has passed. She's going to be brain dead. We need to do something. And then the orthopedic surgeon said, stand clear. And everybody stepped away from the table. And he took 2 steps forward and he took his fist from behind his back and he went whammo and he smacked the center of my chest. I had never seen that before either. I wasn't a TV person, so
Mhm.
I didn't really watch TV, and you don't see that very often in movies and stuff, but at least the ones I went to. And so he smacked my chest, and I watched my body respond to that with kind of a jerk, but I didn't go back into it. But that's when the being then spoke to me. I had been saying I needed to go back, I needed to protect my children, and the being said, this really calm, beautiful voice goes, but if you go back, you'll still be in your marriage. What will you do? And then I was shown all these little film clips that just went flash, 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 flash. And it was all these incidents that I had lived through with my husband of all the abuse that he had been doing. And then I thought about all the things that I had done to try to help him change and realized he couldn't change.
Mm.
And I said to the being, if you let me go back, I promise you I'll get strong enough to leave him. And the second I said the word him, the doctor did the second precardial thump, smacked my chest again, and I shut my eyes up on the ceiling. And the next second I opened my eyes and I had the oxygen mask on my face and I was back in my body. So I said into the oxygen mask, what just happened? And the nurse leaned over me and said, stop, don't talk. We need to stabilize you. And so 20 minutes later, they finally had stabilized me and they took the oxygen mask off. And I looked at everybody and I said, what just happened? I was up on the ceiling and I could see and hear everything. And the neurosurgeon went, "Oh, brother." And I said, "No, I'm telling you the truth. She was on the phone calling for the defib unit saying stat, and that lady brought in the oxygen cart, and that man brought in the heart monitor, and I watched my flatline, and these two guys were doing CPR, and you said to him," and I completely recounted everything that had just happened. And the neurosurgeon, while I was talking, clenched his fists into tightly, and he looked like this, and he went, "I am not going to stand here and listen to this." And he went storming out of the room.
Whoa.
But then the orthopedic surgeon took my hand very gently and said, "Tell me, what was it like? Tell me again what you saw. What did it feel like?" And he was very interested, and everybody in the room was zoomed in on me. And then they finally put me on a gurney and they took me up to my room, and then nobody at the hospital would open one door of talking to me about that at all.
Wow.
Everybody that would walk into my room to do my vitals and stuff would say, "I don't see anything here on the chart. I don't know what you're talking about." And the next day when they did the surgery, the two doctors came in the recovery area after the surgery, and I said, "What happened last night? What was that?" And the neurosurgeon put his hand out like this and he said, "I am not going to talk to you about that. I'm here to talk to you about the surgery." So I ended up having to see him again 2 weeks later, and he did the same thing to me. He said, "I will not talk to you about that." I think everyone was scared that I was going to sue
Mm.
because it was an error that they'd made there at the hospital. And I wasn't going to sue. I just wanted to know what it was. Didn't, I had never heard of anything like that. So back then there was just, having to go to the library to research stuff. I didn't do that. I had two kids. I was working. No. So when the internet came up, I ended up surprisingly talking to a girlfriend of mine, and she was a nurse at the hospital. And I disclosed to her that I'd had this happen. Her mom was dying and she was feeling very traumatic about it. And I told her, "I have a story that I think might help you." And so I told her about it, and she said, "Barbara, that's called a near-death experience. A lot of people have those. I've even seen people have them. There's information online. You can look it up." And I went, "Oh my gosh." So it was like 12 years later before I
Wow.
finally even knew it was called a near-death experience. And I ended up having, this whole thing unfold where now I run this group and I bring experiencers to Santa Barbara, and I have 60 or 80 people currently that come to my meetings. It used to be 150 to 200, but yeah, so we just have this wonderfully soft, good group. And we have what I found was that I had nobody that supported me through the experience back then. So I have an experiencers group that meets either at my home or another person who's on my board's home, and we have a circle that we just sit in a circle and let them talk to each other. And it's, they all know that they've had some type of spiritually transformative experience. And so this is their, people. We're the ones that are your people. So it's really beautiful. And I know that a lot of people have contacted me and said, "You helped me with my grief over the death of my loved one," or "You helped me in my um, passing over coming up soon because I have cancer," or whatever. I'm not feeling at all like I was before I heard your near death experience. So I know that it's a gift, and I know I'm supposed to talk about it. And I really feel that's my purpose in life. That's what I came back not only to take care of, raise my good kids, but to also give people that gift. And so the IANS organization is a worldwide organization that has groups all over the place,
Mhm.
overseas as well as in the United States. And they have a conference every year on Labor Day weekend. And it's going to be, I think, August 27th through the 31st this year, and it's going to be in Chicago, Illinois. They move it every year to different places. And I wouldn't miss it for anything, because that is where you hear these experiencer stories and you get to meet them and you get so much information, and it's just worth it. So anybody who wants to go, I'll see you there.
Yeah, that's amazing. And look, yeah, look what it's done, right? Look what
Yeah,
like. It's just multiplied, and you're helping so many
yeah,
others now, and that's so cool. I mean,
yeah.
obviously a very difficult situation to go through, but also led to so many positive things. And I think
Yes.
that's really
Oh,
cool.
and the amazing part of it is they've done a ton of research on near-death experiences, and they have found that the experiencers have certain set. It's on the IANDS website,
Mm.
www.iands.org, but there's all these after effects that the experiencers will generally have. And so I had those after effects all the way back to my childhood, and I never knew why. My mom used to look at me and go, "Where did you come from?" I would know who was calling on the phone before she even picked it up. I knew that there was going to be a car accident in front of us in 2 minutes. All these different things had
Yeah.
happened, and my mom would just be like, "Who are you?" And so it was cool when I finally found out what the after effects are, and I saw the tie-in to all of the things that I had grown up with in my life had all been after effects from that initial near-death experience. After I found out about it,
Mm.
then that was where I saw, oh my God, that's the tie-in. So it's been a really amazing life. My husband sometimes, I'm remarried. I have a wonderful husband, 7 feet tall, ex NBA basketball player. He's a good guy. And we have 5 kids altogether, his two, my two, and our baby together. And they're all grown up now. So, but sometimes something will happen and I'll know what's going to happen ahead of time. And I'll, you know, alert him, and he'll go, "How do you do this?" And I'm like, "Victor, it's not me doing it. The other side, whatever you want to call it, angels, God,
Yeah.
Buddha, I don't care what name you use, they want to help us, and they want to be part of our lives and help us get to, a better place in our lives." And I think, seriously, after all of this growth that I've had since the NDEs, I realize that we're here many times, not just once.
Mhm.
And we're here to grow our soul. We have these situations that come up that we have choices on, and we make the choices in our life, and then, suffer repercussions for those choices sometimes, and also, celebration for those choices sometimes. So it's interesting to see how we have this human experience and how it grows our soul. And then, we come back again,
Yeah,
do it
yeah.
again. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. I think that's amazing. I think that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, and, um,
Yeah.
I think it's really cool, like I said, to see where this is all taking you now. It's amazing. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many people out there that have had near-death experiences. I think that they said something like 5 million people in the United States alone. And it's really interesting because when I'm out in public, I have a little button that I wear that says NDE on it, that I had created them and had them made, and it's like a little lapel pin. And whenever I wear that, I my husband always laughs at me because literally someone will walk up to me and say, "What does your NDE pin mean?" And I go, "Near death experience. I'm a near death experiencer." And they'll go, "Oh my God, my sister had that. My mother, my brother, my father, my sister, my lover." What? It was so funny. My husband's always like, "Oh my gosh." And then they'll launch into their near death experience story because they don't have anybody to talk to about it.
Yeah.
Usually it's a thing that you keep inside. So
It's getting
I think it's,
better, right? Like, it's definitely getting to that
yes, it
place where
is.
there's a lot more exposure going on.
Yes.
You've probably seen that, like, 10x, right? From when you had your NDEs to,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I would
Oh,
imagine it's
yeah. And
so
even
different.
I even did a grand rounds talk at my local hospital
Wow.
about my near-death experience, and the guy who ran it was a very big doctor in the hospital, and he said that was the largest attendance of doctors and nurses for a grand rounds talk that he'd ever seen. I think it was 60 doctors and 40 nurses
Mm.
showed up to listen to my near-death experience. So, and I've been on the NBC Today show. I mean, yeah, everybody's talking about it now, and I think it's going to change the way the world looks at the world as we all grow with it. I think that's going to be something that helps everybody.
It's definitely playing a role, right? It definitely plays a role.
Yeah.
It's super exciting. I want to say again, thank you, because I know it was a little difficult for us to get here, but I see also thank you for telling your story. I am one of those people who watched NDEs, and it affected me. Definitely had a role on my journey. I haven't had one per se myself, but it's led to some
Mhm.
pretty profound things in my life. And I just really appreciate you actually being brave and getting out there and sharing stories, because without people like you, Yeah, I don't think I would even be where I'm at, which is crazy to say, right? Because I haven't even had an NDE, so and I know there's a lot more others like that, so
Well, they've even done research on that at the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia, and they have determined that you don't have to have an NDE. If you listen to the stories and you grasp what's being said, then you actually absorb what that NDEer had happened to them, and you don't need to have the NDE
proof,
yourself. Yeah, proof right there in
proof.
front of you, right? Exactly. So that's beautiful.
It
Yeah.
is beautiful. It's so exciting. Is there, well, I guess I'll leave it in the notes, but I'll leave the group in the notes. I'll leave anything else you'd like
Yeah.
me to put in there. Anything else you'd like to say, I guess, to the audience or anyone watching this who's maybe experienced an NDE or is curious about, is there any parting
Yeah.
message you'd like to leave?
Well, I would just tell everyone to support those people who have had a near death experience and don't discredit them and don't, oh, brother,
Hmm.
don't do that stuff because they have had that experience and that is very deep in them and that will change who they are as the years go on. And so grow with them, don't separate them out because a lot of the near death experiencers end up with divorce because the person that loves them sees an entirely different person after they come back with the care and the concern that we have for the world and wanting to do our best and all the different things that it's also on the IAN's website that the after effects bring on for us. And so, love that person. If you know somebody who has had a near death experience, let them grow and grow with them.
Beautiful. Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you again, Barbara. Thank you
You're
so much for being here.
welcome.
I really appreciate you. I would love to stay in touch. I know we will. I have a feeling we definitely
Yes.
will.
Yes,
Um,
Jordan.
I will keep you posted when I post this, and
Okay, that sounds good. I can be your mom in Santa Barbara.
yeah, I love it. I love it. If I'm in Santa Barbara, I'm coming to see you, Mom. I got you.
All right, good. All right, sweetie. Take good care and have a
Thank you.
beautiful day.
Cheers, Barbara. Bye.